You are listening to the Bat Flip Podcast, a baseball podcast from Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Damian and Matt.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Bat Flip Podcast. My name is Damian here with my co-host, Matt, coming to you on July 5th of 2022. Got a episode we're going to talk about the second phase of the All-Star voting. We're going to look at some of our pitchers that we think should make the All-Star game. We're going to build our perfect home run derby field for the 2022 home run derby that comes up in a couple weeks. And then we'll go to Players of the Week. But before we get to all of that, how are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing good. I hope everyone had a good 4th of July and good holiday weekend. And man, it's just been hot and stormy here. So been had a pretty good weekend. Spent the afternoon at the lake yesterday and a lot of fun. So hope everyone out there's had a safe and happy weekend.
Yeah, I hope everyone had a safe weekend. I know there's some stuff going on. Unfortunately, people weren't so safe this weekend, but hopefully everyone that listens here did have a safe, fun weekend and was able to celebrate. But we'll go ahead and jump right into going over the second phase of the All-Star voting. So it's new this year. They've got down now to the finalists at each position. Now you get to vote out of those two for each of those, and then the outfield for three. But the top vote getters from the AL were Aaron Judge, and the NL was Ronald Acuna Jr., so they automatically have a starting spot in the All-Star game. So we'll basically only be able to pick two more outfielders for each league there. But looking at the American League first baseman, you got Ty France and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and then looking at the NL, you got Pete Alonso and Paul Goldschmidt.
Yeah, so definitely good stuff at first base. Obviously, Ty France is hurt, so that kind of stinks. So if he wins, he won't be playing most likely. I think he's supposed to come back pretty soon, but either way. And then the NL, I think Paul Goldschmidt is kind of front runner for MVP right now. So he's been so good. He obviously will be the starter if the fans don't screw it up, which they probably will. So
yeah, there's some questionable voting choices throughout this so far, but I feel like they really did get the at least the NL first baseman right. The AL first baseman seems like Vlad is not that bad of a choice, especially even though the average looks down, the year is still pretty solid. And France has been the best first baseman in the AL, barring the injury. So I think they definitely got the first base side right, in voting so far. But we'll go ahead and look over at the second base, and we have Jose Altuve and Santiago Espinal in the American League. And then looking over the National League, you got Ozzie Albies and Jazz Chisholm.
Yeah, so in the American League, Jose Altuve should easily win this. Santiago Espinal has been a pretty fun player this year, great defender and a pretty good, decent hitter. So good for obviously he wouldn't be the choice I'd put as my second choice for second baseman, but it looks like Blue Jays fans have been voting. So Jose Altuve, though, is easily the best in the American League second baseman and the best second baseman in the majors, and it's really not that close. And then in the National League, Braves fans have been voting too, so that's why Ozzie Albies is there because he's hurt. He's been hurt for a long time, and before he was hurt, he's just okay this year. He had a slow start. So Jazz Chisholm, of course, is also on the IL. So I don't know what would happen at second base, but Jazz Chisholm, would probably be the choice here. I think Tommy Edman probably would have, if they had given him second base, would have been the easy choice at second base. But MLB decided not to put the players in their positions on here, so I don't know why they did that. But there you go.
They seem to manipulate the ballot so they can get some other guys on here.
Yeah.
Because I think they ended up having like Nolan Gorman at second or something. But
yeah,
Altuve should easily win in the American League. You mentioned in the National League, I guess it would be Jazz should win it. Maybe he'll be back by then. I don't know, and if they'll let him play. But yeah, I don't know what they would do as far as if they're both out for the game. Does one of the reserves automatically just become the starter, or is it up to Brian Snitker at that moment? So it'll be interesting to see if that is the case, but hopefully it's not.
Yep.
But we'll go ahead and look over at third base, where this one might be the toughest call in any of them so far, and that is with Rafael Devers and Jose Ramirez in the American League, and then Nolan Arenado and Manny Machado in the National League.
Yeah, so when I look at the All Star game, I think that your first thing you look at is the stats so far on the season, your counting stats, because obviously you're looking at results instead of predictive. But when guys are pretty much tied, I do like to look at some of the predictive stuff to see who's actually been playing better and who's is more sustainable and whatever, just as a tiebreaker. And I think in the American League, Jose Ramirez's season so far, although Rafael Devers is great, and he's gonna sustain having a fantastic season because he's a great player. But Jose Ramirez is a little bit more sustainable, and I think although Rafael Devers has made huge improvements defensively and base running wise, Jose Ramirez is a little bit better on both aspects there. So I would go with Jose Ramirez, and then at third base in the National League, I mean those guys are real similar, but I think you got to go with Manny Machado. He's been a little bit better at the plate, and he's a little bit better in the field. Although obviously Arenado is a fantastic defensive player, but so far this year, go with Manny Machado there.
Yeah, and see, I think on the American League, I actually lean Rafi Devers over Jose Ramirez. I just think he's had the better season overall. I mean, Ramirez has more RBIs, but his OPS is slightly lower average. Rafi has more homers, and Rafi has made a big step in the defensive side. So I lean Rafi Devers a little bit there, but it is really, really close.
Yeah.
The National League side, the first month of the season, people would say Nolan Arenado, and then it's been Manny Machado ever since. It's going to be interesting to see because Machado has been nursing an injury. I believe it's to his knee or ankle. They've been limited to DHing some, maybe not even playing the field, or not playing the field, not playing at all, and being a pinch hitter. I think we saw that 2 games out of that 4-game Dodgers series they had this weekend. So it will be interesting to see if he's going to be able to play or not. And Arenado's come on strong as of late. I mean, he hit for the cycle this week, and then he was one that started the rally for the 4 consecutive homers that the Cardinals had. This time was the first time in Cardinals history and the 11th time in Major League history that ever happened. So, I think overall, as of right now, Machado is still the guy, but Arenado's been making a late push, and if Machado's not able to go, then you have an easy candidate.
Yeah, and like I said, you look at those two guys, and Machado, I think he's been a little bit better, but playing 7 fewer games. I mean, Arenado's almost caught up to him in WAR, so it's close. And Arenado also a little bit more sustainable with what he's done so far, but I think Machado's far enough ahead of him for it to be not a tie situation. I think it's just a slight lead for Machado right now for me, but we'll see what happens there.
Absolutely, it's gonna be really close. Looking over at the shortstop side, we got Tim Anderson and Bo Bichette in the American League, and then we got Dansby Swanson and Trey Turner in the National League.
Yeah, so I think in the American League, you look at Tim Anderson and Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette really shouldn't be there. He hadn't been really all that good. I don't know why Xander Bogaerts getting votes because he plays for the Red Sox. I'm surprised their fans haven't been voting him in, and he's been the best shortstop in the American League by a pretty decent margin. So I don't really understand that. Tim Anderson's great. Actually, I think Tim Anderson's been pretty close to Xander, but defensively, Xander's been a little bit better actually, and Xander's also been able to stay on the field a little bit better. Tim Anderson's only played 52 games, so if I had to pick between them, the two that we got, obviously Tim Anderson, but I think Xander Bogaerts is probably the guy I would have picked. But Tim Anderson's been way better. Bo Bichette's really struggled this year for the most part. So
yeah, and Tim Anderson's the easy choice out of those two. It just kind of baffling that he's even in here over Xander too. The counting stats aren't nearly as similar. He has a higher average, but 5 home runs, 19 RBIs, and an 800 OPS isn't what you would think of your starting American League shortstop, for the All-Star game. So out of the two, Tim Anderson's the vote, but I do question both of these finalists
Yeah.
really being there.
Yeah, Tim Anderson's probably worthy of being in the final. Jeremy Pena is probably the guy I would have picked over. I would have picked Xander Bogaerts and Jeremy Pena as
Well,
my
yeah,
top two, but
that's what I'm saying.
yeah, but Tim Anderson's a lot closer than Bo Bichette. I mean, Tim Anderson's close to. He's really not that far off of Xander, but it's just the fact that he's missed 25 games already. That's been the issue for Tim. I mean, on a rate basis, he's been better than anybody. So
Well, and that's why the counting stats are a lot lower.
right.
Which
So,
alludes to my point
but
from that. But
yeah.
yeah, and then looking over at the National League side, it's a battle of our teams. We got Dansby Swanson and Trey Turner, and I think either of us are going to side with our teams there because I think Trey, and I'm pretty sure you probably think Dansby.
Yeah, I mean Dansby Swanson, they're basically the same hitter so far. In fact, their OPS own base percentages are separated um, by 2 points on own base, and their slugging percentage is separated by like 15, with Dansby ahead in both. But obviously Dansby Swanson, and they're both base running extremely well. I mean, Trey Turner always a great base runner. Dansby Swanson, 12 stolen bases. Their base running metrics are actually led by Dansby Swanson, but the big difference for me, because those kind of metrics are pretty close, maybe even tied for me. Big difference is Dansby Swanson is one of the best defensive shortstops in the NL, and Trey Turner is an okay defensive shortstop. So I think that Dansby's pretty easily. I mean, he's got a .8 WAR advantage right now, almost a full win above replacement advantage, and I think Dansby's definitely the guy for me.
Yeah, I mean it is really close. You mentioned um, it. It's not. You can't go wrong with either pick there.
No, they're
Um,
both great players, and they'll both be
yeah,
on the team. I mean,
exactly. I think all of these people will be on the team if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but um, yeah, I mean, I guess just watching Trey every day, the impact on the game he brings, but you could say the same thing about Dansby. Maybe the thing is that leans for me is Dansby was really bad for like the first month and a half of the season, and then he's been really hot as of late. And Trey's been basically the most consistent of the two. But even for the numbers being where they are, and Dansby leading slightly in that, I mean, he had to have such a hot stretch after being so bad. So you can't go wrong with either one. Dansby would absolutely be a great choice here as well. And Braves fans have been really voting, so I wouldn't be surprised to even see him take it. But looking over at the catcher position in the American League, we have Alejandro Kirk and Jose Trevino. And then in the National League, we have Wilson Contreras and Travis d'Arnaud.
yeah. So these are actually the top 4 players in WAR. The voters actually kind of got it right here. And in the American League, I mean, Alejandro Kirk has a 160 WRC plus on the season in 71 games. He does DH a pretty good bit, but primarily as a catcher, his plate discipline numbers are insane. 12% walk, 9% strikeout. He hits for some power, 505 slugging percentage. He's been incredible, and Jose Trevino is a great story, and he's been great this year. He's been one of the best defensive catchers in the big leagues, and his bat's caught up a little bit. His bat's been pretty decent. Actually above average for big league average, and way above average for catchers. But I got to go with Kirk, and then in the National League, I think you got to go with Wilson Contreras right now. He's been incredible at the plate. His defense is really, really bad. Maybe not Salvador Perez bad, but it's bad. But I think that the advantage of him playing every day is a big deal, because Travis d'Arnaud's only played 55 games just because the Braves rest him a lot. He's a veteran catcher. He's up in his 30s, so that they rest him a pretty good bit. Although on a rate basis, Travis d'Arnaud's been better, but I would go with Kirk and Contreras right now if I was picking.
Yeah, I watch a lot of the Blue Jay games just because they're a fun team to watch. And every time I'm watching a game, Alejandro Kirk just seems to find some way to impact the game each and every time. It's been really remarkable watching the turnaround he's had to become an actual major league level player this year. So he's the easy choice for the American League. Trevino's a good story, like you mentioned, but I don't think that he's anywhere near the level of what Kirk has put up so far this year. I know he's been great defensively, but I think that Kirk's offensive numbers and still being solid behind the plate kind of makes me want to lean towards him a lot. And then the National League, I think Wilson Contreras is just the easy pick. Overall, he's been a better catcher. I mean, defensively, he's worse, but I think offensively, the impact he brings there. Um, and Darno has rested a lot. You mentioned that's why the counting stats are a little lower, but even an OPS is 100 points higher for Wilson Contreras right now. So I think that kind of just says everything you need to know. Like, he's been a much better offensive catcher than Travis Darno. So the four catchers right here are pretty much the four that should be there. I mean, the AL, you might be able to find a couple other guys. Maybe if a Jonah Heim had more time there, he'd get it. The NL, you could have Real Muto or Will Smith, but overall, those are the four good choices. I think Kirk and Contreras are the easy two picks there. But looking over to the outfield, you get to pick two from these. So in the American League, you got Lourdes Gurriel Jr., George Springer, Giancarlo Stanton, and Mike Trout. And then in the National League, you have Mookie Betts, Adam Duvall, Starling Marte, and Jock Peterson.
Yeah, so when I look at this right now, and just to add on that, and the reason we're picking two is in the outfield, the top vote getter from each league is already locked in. So Judge is obviously an outfielder, and he's in already, and Acuna is already in. He's an outfielder. So, but in the American League, out of the choices here, I mean, Mike Trout is easily one of the choices. Although he's really struggled a little bit lately, but he's a choice for sure. I mean, he's been on the season, he's been great. The other three, I mean, out of those guys, it's hard to pick honestly, because I mean, I don't know what some of these guys did to. I don't know what Julio Rodriguez did for people to not vote for him. I don't know what Kyle Tucker did for people not to vote for him. I mean, even Taylor Ward, I think you could make a definite argument should be there. Buxton, I don't know why he's not, but out of all those guys, I mean, I think Springer Giancarlo Stanton's not an outfielder really. He plays outfield some, but he's mainly a DH. So I guess Springer has been good, and I'd probably go with him. But I mean, if you're just going for the bat, Stanton's bat's been really good this year. Stanton's actually cut his strikeout rate down some, and he's hitting for a lot of power. So I guess I'd go with Stanton just because. I mean, I don't think Lourdes Gurriel is really that close. So I guess I'd go with Trout and Stanton.
Yeah, Trout's an easy pick. He's been so insane. Even struggling as of late, he still has a 991 OPS on the season.
Yeah,
it's just insane. I lean Springer more than Stanton. I just think Springer's probably been more solid overall, and that Stanton, you mentioned, he's not an outfielder. He's more of a DH. But they manipulated the ballot again to get them in other places, to get some people in other places. So I lean Springer there. I mean, it is close, but I think just the fact that Springer is actually an outfielder full time is what leads me to go Springer over Stanton in this scenario. Although I do think Stanton should probably be there in some capacity. At least this one's going to be probably a bench bat, but yeah. I think he should be there. And then looking in the National League side, out of the four, you got Mookie Betts, Adam Duvall, Starling Marte, and Jock Peterson.
Yeah, and I mean, same thing here, kind of, I don't understand some of these guys. I think Mookie Betts, if he's healthy, I mean, he would be one of the guys I'd vote for because, but I don't know if he'll play because of his injury he's dealt with. I know he came back, but, he might want that little extra rest since he just came off the IL. But, I mean, Adam Duvall is just on here because Braves fans are voting well. I mean, he really hadn't been good at all this year. And then Starling Marte has been decent, but he's kind of been more of he's just been decent. So, I mean, I would go with, out of these guys, I mean, Jock Peterson's an atrocious defensive player, but I would go with Jock Peterson. He's been really good at the plate. He's hit 17 home runs, has a 155 WRC plus. I would go with Jock Peterson for sure, and then obviously I would vote for Mookie Betts out of these guys, even though I don't know if he's actually going to play or not. So,
Yeah, I think Mookie is obviously the easy choice. He was the leading vote getter for a lot of the time in the National League overall. And Acuna took that. I think it was like the last day or two he took it. I think he ended up winning by like 20,000 votes or something. But only reason I think, I mean, Mookie did come back, but I also think because it's in Los Angeles, he might play at least an inning, start the game,
Yeah.
and then strictly for storyline reasons, Jock Peterson starting the All Star game in Los Angeles in a Giants uniform would be hilarious, to say the least. But Marte's had a really good season for a
Yeah.
Starling Marte type season. I mean, he doesn't have the power numbers that the other guys have, but I mean, look, he has a 285 average, 9 homers, 39 RBIs, and almost an 800 OPS. Like, that's a really good season for a Starling Marte type player. If you're talking strict compared to Peterson, probably better defense. He has just about as many RBIs, one less. He has a better average, and sure, the power numbers aren't there, but that's not what you expect from Starling Marte. So, he's absolutely deserving to be on this. I just purposely for storyline reasons, I think Jock Peterson starting the All Star game in LA in a Giants uniform just takes the cake a little bit more for me over Marte.
Yeah, really the only difference, I mean, between the two has been Starling Marte's also been horrible defensively. The only difference is Starling Marte's a good base runner and Jock Peterson's a bad base runner. So they're real similar players so far, and Jock Peterson's been much better at the plate, but that's why he gets the edge for me. But I think Starling's been really good. So especially he impacts the game in a few different ways that Jock Peterson doesn't. But
Absolutely. And then we'll move on to our designated hitters, which will end up the ballot. In the AL, you have Jordan Alvarez and Shohei Otani. And then the NL, you have William Contreras and Bryce Harper.
yeah, so you look in the AL, and I think that obviously Shohei Otani should be on the team, but I think as a pitcher, as a hitter, I think Jordan Alvarez has been maybe. I mean, I, I think he's been the best hit. I think he's been the best hitter in baseball so far. Just on a, I mean, he's been incredible. 201 WRC plus, 310, 410, 653 slugging. He also has dealt with an injury this week. I don't know if he's back yet. Um,
I think he is.
yeah, it looked like I was watching the game. He collided with Jeremy Pena, and I think it was just maybe a concussion. He was playing outfield in that specific game. But he's been incredible. I don't think you can vote against him. I know that Shohei is a lot of fun to watch and he's a great player, but I think Shohei gets in Shohei gets in as a pitcher. I think, um, and then you look at the National League. And I mean, Bryce Harper's on the, going to get a lot of votes, but he's injured. I mean, he would have been the guy for me in the National League if he wasn't injured. But I mean, and there's some other guys who probably could be the pick. But I mean, I think William Contreras has been fantastic this year. But I think you kind of have to go with Bryce Harper if you're voting, just because he's been incredible. Even though William Contreras has been fantastic, and you could vote for either one. And honestly, I mean, that's more ballot manipulation too, because William Contreras is catching almost as much as Travis d'Arnaud is. So, William Contreras you could have as a catcher, but almost. I mean, he DHs a little bit more, um, but it would be cool. I will say this: if William Contreras wins it, which he might because of Harper's injury, it would be really cool to watch William Contreras and Wilson Contreras both start the All Star game. So that would be really fun to see. But anyways.
Yeah, that would be really fun to see. And you mentioned Bryce Harper. I mean, even though he's injured, he would be the pick there. But if I think if you're down to a finalist and a guy like Harper's gonna miss, I think you just have to go with Contreras there. And I wouldn't be surprised even if Harper does get the thing that Contreras gets the spot anyways. Because I'm not quite sure how they work with if they're going to be on the team or not if you're a finalist. Or how that all works. But I still wouldn't be surprised to see William Contreras there in one capacity or another.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at statistically, I mean, he's been the second best in the National League. He's been the second best bat that's on the DH eligibility. So, I mean, I think he would be the guy anyways.
Yeah, but they could also manipulate it and have another guy come in and be the DH.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see that at all. And then looking over at the American League, Shohei should be there. You mentioned as a pitcher, um, in there, even if he was on the bench as a hitter technically. I mean, you make him as a pitcher, he could still hit. But Jordan has been absolutely incredible. Um, you mentioned that he could be the best hitter in baseball. I think that's a very valid statement. He could be. I mean, he's definitely inside the top 5 overall hitter in baseball. Um, and you can make an argument that this year maybe Goldschmidt, but it's close. I mean, Trout's still shown the ability,
And
but the average is down. But
Trout's striking out like over
the
30% of the
strikeouts
time.
don't even matter to me anymore. Just Mike Trout's the level of player.
But he's
Like
good.
I still
Yeah,
think,
I mean he's still great.
yeah. So, anyways, that's the All Star Game Phase 2 voting that will kick off today, the 5th through July 8th. For the starters, and then I believe we looked it up, and that the team will be announced. The full team will be announced. Did you say the 10th? July
Uh,
10th was that?
believe it's Sunday. This
Yeah, so
Sunday.
July 10th at 5:30 Eastern time. So it lines up kind of with like Sunday Night Baseball is when the full team will be announced at that point. But we wanted to look at some pitchers because pitchers aren't really a thing that get voted on. It's usually just through executives and players of the league. But we each picked 5 starters and 3 relievers from each league. So if you want to go ahead and say your American League starters.
Yeah, so in the American League, I went with I think I think it's a pretty good group here. I've got starting the game. I don't know. I didn't say to when we were talking about it. I didn't say to do who we picked starting the game, but I'll go ahead and say it. Starting the game, I'd go with Shane McClanahan. Um, I think he's been the best pitcher in the American League so far. Dude's been out of control good. Um, and just that at his age, lefty throwing 100 and controlling it as well as he has. I mean, his peripherals back up what he's done, and he's got a 174 ERA on the season. He's been incredible. My other guys, Martin Perez, I went with him. He's been great. The Rangers need a representative, and I don't know if they'll get any hitters in the game. So Martin Perez, 234 ERA on the season. Justin Verlander, I think 203 ERA, 90 in 97 innings so far. The bounce back year, he's a great story. And anytime Justin Verlander's having this kind of season, you just kind of have to put him in there because he's just, he's a legend of the game. He's a future Hall of Famer. I mean, and he's been great this year. Kevin Gossman, actually by WAR, he still leads the American League in pitching WAR. 168 FIP. He hasn't given up many home runs this year. Given a very high amount of on balls in play. 372 BABIP against him. It's insanely high, but he actually might. I don't know if he'll be healthy for it, but if I was picking right now, I'd go with him. 286 ERA on the season, way higher than his peripherals, but still that's a great number and 90-ish innings so far. And another one, the other starter I went with was Frankie Montas because I don't know if he'll be healthy either. But because of what he was pulled out of the game early the other day with his velocity was way down. They said he was having some shoulder issues, but the A's need somebody in the game, and Frankie Montas has been really really good. So I think there's some guys that might be a little more deserving, but he'll get in because of if he's healthy because of needing a representative. So those 5 guys, and then on the relievers, um, I mean Clay Holmes, you have to put him in there. He's got an 0.49 ERA. He stepped into the closer role for the Yankees with 15 saves. He's been really good. Um, Emmanuel Clase, I think you got to have him in there. He's been extremely good for Cleveland, who's had a good year so far. He's got a 131 ERA, 34 innings, really good. And then another guy I went with because they need a representative is Jorge Lopez from the Orioles. Jorge Lopez is having a really good year. So he's not quite as good as a couple of these guys, but he's a guy you got to have somebody. He's got a 188 ERA on the season. His peripherals aren't quite as good, but he gets a lot of ground balls, and he's having a really solid season. So I went with him too.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with any of those guys. We just a little bit different for my starters, and only one different reliever for me. I did pick Gossman and McClanahan, Verlander. McClanahan should be the guy to start the game. The last two I went with for starting pitchers were Nestor Cortez Jr. I just think the start to the season he had and the overall numbers, even though the FIP is still a little higher than, I mean, a 2.44 ERA, but a 3.36 FIP. 85 innings still. I mean, for a guy who nobody expected to be, I think that people were questioning him even in the rotation, and him to have this type of season, I think he has to be in there. And then Alek Manoah, I feel like a guy who's really taken a next step to be, one of the upper echelon pitchers so far this year. He has a 2.33 ERA. The FIP is 3.32 as well, but 100 innings. I mean, he's pitched more than McClanahan, more than Gossman. Um, you know, more. I think Framber Valdez has an inning, and Robbie Ray has 3 more innings than him. But for I think he's third in the American League in innings pitched so far, and a guy who we've seen take a dramatic step forward. So I think Alek Manoah should be in the game. And then my bullpen arms, you mentioned Clay Holmes, you mentioned Emmanuel Clase. And then for my last reliever, I went with Dennis Santana from the Texas Rangers. You mentioned the Rangers need a representative. I went with Santana. He's pitched a lot of high leverage situations for them. He was a guy who had really struggled in his career to find a home. The Dodgers, who are known for being able to get pitchers to the top level, really struggled to find a home for Santana, dropped him, and he's taken off with the Rangers this year. 1.44 ERA, a 2.31 FIP, 31 innings for them this year, and some high leverage innings for them. So I believe that Dennis Santana would be an easy choice for the Rangers with Martin Perez, but I decided to get Manoah and Nestor on my starting rotation and go with Santana as a bullpen arm.
Yeah, I thought about I thought about Manoah over Gossman, but I'm a little bit more of a sabermetric type guy, so I went with the guy with the better peripheral numbers because I think they're pretty similar, honestly, when it comes to the resume overall. And then with Santana could definitely be the guy. He's been really good. I mean, it's hard to pick relievers, honestly, because there's a lot of really good ones that are really close together. So, and there's more than 3 on the team. So I bet both of those guys get on the team. So.
Yeah, and then so who do you have for your National League pitching?
So in the NL, I have starting the game. I think right now Alcantara, especially after what he did tonight. Pitching 8 shutout innings again, but he's pitching at a ridiculous pace innings wise for this day and age. Honestly, I'd like to see him strike out a few more guys, just in general, like to keep up the pace he's at. He's under 8 strikeouts per 9, and tonight he struck out a lot of guys, but it's the Angels, so everyone's striking out the Angels. But I think he's been so efficient with his pitches. He's throwing a ton of innings. He's been great. I think he will be the guy to start the game. Sub 2 ERA, and with the amount of innings he's pitched, you can't go wrong with that. Other than him, I've got Max Fried. I think Max Fried is the best he's looked in his career so far. He's been fantastic. He is second in the league in WAR. His peripherals are extremely good. He's been great. Zach Wheeler. He had a rough maybe first week or 2 of the season, and then ever since then he's been incredible. 2.66 ERA, which is actually the same ERA that Max Fried has. He has only pitched in 88 innings. He missed 1 start early in the season, but he's been really, really good. And then I've got Joe Musgrove. He's been great. A 2.25 ERA, 92 innings. His peripherals maybe not quite as good as those other guys, but they're still really good. He's been great. And then I went with Corbin Burns. There's a lot of other candidates here that I could have picked. I was kind of down between him and Carlos Rodon, but Corbin Burns, I think he deserves it just because he's the defending Cy Young winner and he's had a great season so far. 2.36 ERA. I mean, it's hard to it's hard to go wrong with that. Even though I think Rodon's probably been a little bit better, with when you look at all the metrics and stuff. But Corbin Burns, one of the big knocks on Corbin Burns last year too was the lack of innings pitched, and he's up to 99 already this year. He's doing, he's on pace for being close to 200 by the end of the season, which he's never done before. So I definitely like what he's done so far as well. And then reliever wise, Hader. I mean, I don't know how you couldn't say Hader. And then he's been the best. And then I got Edwin Diaz. He's been great for the Mets. You know, he's he's had 1.16 xFIP. I know his ERA is 195, but his xFIP is 1.16. It's just insane. I don't know if I've ever seen one that low. And then for a season. And then Helsley, I think I picked him too. He's been really, really, really good for the Cardinals. And he's actually leads the NL in reliever WAR. So an 0.83 ERA for him, been incredible. Almost picked Taylor Rogers too. He's been really good, but he's more of a saves, whereas I'm not worried about saves as much. So.
Yeah, so for my relievers, I picked the same three: Helsley, Diaz, Hader. I think they've been the top three easy choices so far this year. The All-Star Game starters, or the guy who should start the All-Star Game, not who I want to start the All-Star Game, but it should be Sandy. The season he's had so far this year, just incredible. Best pitcher in the game right now. Max Fried, he's in there. Another great season, the best we've seen him. He's taking that next step forward as well. Joe Musgrove, talk about a guy who's taking the next step. He showed it last year, and he's backing it up even more this year. Really deserves to be there as well. I'm going to get a lot of flack probably for it, but I went with Tony Gonsolin should be there as well. The innings, I mean, he's at 81 innings. But he's only missed one start, really. They were just taking it easy on him early in the year, only having him pitch 3 or 4 innings as a start. But he's got a 1.54 ERA. The FIP is at a 3.3, but he's been the most consistent starter this year on a team that is the best team in the National League at the moment. He's 10-0. I mean, I know pitcher wins don't count. Pitcher win and losses aren't a big thing anymore, but still to be 10-0 and a 1.54 ERA, I take the little bit less innings and have him at least on the staff at some point. Corbin Burns, Zach Wheeler, they should be there as well. But I figured if I was going to actually pick a person to start the game, I had to have him on my rotation at somewhat. And it's definitely a homer pick here, but I don't care. You guys shoot me for this one. I went with Clayton Kershaw. He has a 2.57 ERA. Yes, a lot of innings missed. He's only at 56 and only 10 starts, but a 2.86 ERA. This is the level of Kershaw we are seeing right now is just it is worse than what his prime Kershaw was, but not by a lot. He's still a top echelon pitcher. And a thing that I didn't really notice until today is Clayton Kershaw has never started an All-Star game. And with the All-Star Game being in Los Angeles this year and everything that he's meant to that organization, he should be the one to start the All-Star Game. I know he doesn't have the numbers to back it up, and people would get, all worked up about it, but I just think he should be the one to do it. And even though he does have the less starts and the less innings, the version of him we're seeing still should be an All-Star. And, I think if he's in consideration at all for the staff, he should be the one to start the game, even though the numbers don't quite back it up all the way.
Got no comment.
I mean, hey, everyone can let me have it.
I don't think he'll be on the team, so
I think he'll be on the team in some sort of manner, because
he'll be at the game, and but no. I don't know. I mean,
Dave Roberts on the staff, he gets to pick one person to come in. He's absolutely making sure Kershaw's there as an All-Star.
All right.
I mean, he's already said it. He has. He said that Kershaw would be on the team as some sort of a thing. And he's already pushed for him to make the start in general. Like, I know it's Snicker's call, but I just saying, I think, at least to me, as a homer pick, for sure. I know. I always complain about people being homer on their shows. this is my homer moment. I'm sorry. I try to stray away from it some, but this is it. I think Kershaw should start the game,
Yeah.
All-Star game.
If Snicker doesn't go with who's deserving, he'll go with Max Fried. I mean,
All right, well,
but
that's the end of this episode, guys. No, but I mean, we'll see. So now we wanted to go over and just look at who our perfect home run derby field would be for 2022. We're going to pick 4 from the AL, 4 from the NL. Not who should be in there, not anything, just who we would have the most fun watching in the All-Star game the All-Star game, the home run derby this year. So we'll go ahead and start with your American League side.
yeah, and I don't know if I'll catch flack for having two players on the same team here, but I shouldn't. Um, when I look at the All-Star game or I look at the home run derby, I'm looking at guys who hit a lot of home runs in the season. So I'm not looking at not just guys who have good exit velocity on one home run or something. I mean, I remember when Cameron Maben hit a home run like 490 feet. I don't think he ever deserved to be in the home run derby. Uh, but I look at I'm looking at for the American League. My first one, Aaron Judge. He leads the majors in homers. He's got the just extreme home run profile. He hits tons of home runs. He hits the ball extremely hard. He hits the ball extremely far. He's not just a good home run hitter. When he hits them, they're crazy long home runs. So, I think he's definitely a guy I'd have there. I think that Shohei Ohtani. I think that he ought to be there. He's a lot of fun to watch. He is, he's top 5. He's I think third in the league in barrel rate in the American League. And he's just fun to watch hit home runs because he pitches and hits. I don't know if he'll do the Derby because of the workload, but he should be there. Um, I think I really want to see Giancarlo Stanton there again. His exit velocities haven't gone down any. He's still the most entertaining guy to watch hit home runs. He's so he always has been the most entertaining derby type guy out there. I don't think I don't think he should be any different from other years where he's been there. And then I think that the last one I've gone back and forth a little bit. Um, you could make an argument for Trout. You could make an argument for Buxton. There's some other guys that are down the list a little bit, but I think Jordan Alvarez should be there. He is 5th in the majors in barrel rate, which is 4th in the American League. I think that he would be I think he'd be fun to see what he can do in the Derby. He hits the ball extremely hard. He hits it a long way too. So I think that those 4 guys are my picks right now. Jordan Alvarez, Judge, and Stanton all average over a 95 exit velocity on their hits too, on their balls in play, which I think it'd be a lot of fun to see what they can do all together in the All-Star game. So those are my 4 in the American League. Who you got for the American League home run derby participants?
Yeah, so for mine, I'm not going to have all the fancy stats you had to back it up because I went off purely who I would enjoy watching the most in this. And I picked Jordan as one of them. I think the power that man is able to display and what he would be able to do all over the field in a home run derby style format would be insane. The next one I went with was Byron Buxton. Just the homers this guy can hit and the power he's able to put behind the ball. He's so much fun to watch, and in a home run derby, I think he would crush it as well. Rafi Devers is another one that I think would be a ton of fun. Lefty hitter, we see that he has extreme power. I think he is like the 5th. I think his home runs are the 5th. Jesus, can I speak? On average, he is in 5th on homer distance in the major leagues, and I think it would be really fun to see him there. And the Red Sox haven't had a guy in the home run derby since Big Papi. So I think getting a guy like Devers in there would be fun. And then Mike Trout, a guy who's never done a home run derby, always turned it down. He's now in, the derbies in Los Angeles / Anaheim. They try and say Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. It's close enough to his home park. The Angels had it before he was there. I'm not sure when they're going to get their next All-Star game. He's talked about potentially doing it in the past. Never felt like the right time. I think this is the right time. You're in LA. It's going to be close to your home. Your home setting. It's close enough for Angels fans, and you need to do it one time in your career. And I think this is the year to get it done. So that's my four: Jordan, Byron Buxton, Mike Trout, and Rafi Devers.
Yeah, those guys. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of them. I mean, you look at I think that Buxton would have been up there for me. Devers is obviously up there. I think that's fun. I think it would be fun for Julio Rodriguez too. I didn't pick
Yeah,
him, but he would be fun to see just because he's a rookie.
him, him and Luis Robert were two that
Yeah,
I was also considering on this.
yeah, but yeah, and then with Trout too, just the amount of injuries he's dealt with, I just don't know if he's never done it before. At this point, I figured he probably would have done it by now if he was wanting to do it. So we'll see. Maybe he does it. But looking at National League participants, the first National League guy that I think you got to go with is Pete Alonso. He's won it 2 years in a row. You'd like to see if he can win it again. He's obviously been great hitting home runs this year. Um, I'd like to see him in there. I think Kyle Schwarber. I mean, what he's been doing so far, he's a lot of fun to watch. See him hit home runs. He hits them a long way. He's got the fourth highest barrel rate in the majors. Very high exit velocities. He hits home runs a long way. I went with Austin Riley as well. He's been hitting the ball really, really hard this year. He's had a few times that he's kind of gone through a weak spell for a couple weeks where some of his numbers have gone down. But he hits the ball extremely hard. He's hit some of the longer home runs in the big leagues this year. And then, I kind of felt like you needed to have a hometown participant for the game being at Dodger Stadium, because while I don't think this guy really should be a home run derby participant, I felt like he's probably the best home run hitter on his team. And I went with Mookie Betts. I don't know. I don't really think he'd be the best home run derby participant, but it's always more fun when there's a hometown. It seems like they always have a hometown guy in it, and it's more fun when there's a hometown guy. So, you got, last year or a couple years ago, I remember when Todd Frazier had that great home run derby. Bryce Harper, I think, won it in DC. That was it's a lot of fun to watch those moments with the home run. I remember Carlos Santana was in it when it was in Cleveland. I think that I think Mookie Betts is probably the guy, but I mean I guess you could make an argument for Bellinger because he's still got a lot of power even though he's really struggled at the plate. And maybe a Freddie Freeman or something. He's been in it before, but I think Mookie Betts is probably the other one.
Yeah, for my NL, I went with Jazz Chisholm as my first guy. None of my players have ever been in the home run derby. I know Jazz is hurt, but I think just the electricity he brings and like what he would bring to a home run derby from the electricity standpoint would be super fun to watch. And I would like to be able to watch the show that he would put on. CJ Cron is another one, a guy who has been hitting for a lot more power recently. He hit one yesterday in Dodger Stadium that looked like it was a pop-up, and it was like 13 rows deep in the right field pavilion for the opposite field. I feel like he'd be pretty fun to watch there, and in the NL West where we've seen him consistently hit a lot of homers, even away from Coors Field would be a lot of fun. Christian Walker is another one I went with. His average doesn't look great, but he is a tremendous power hitter. He's right up there in most homers this year in the league, and he always seems to, be a big time power hitter for them. Even though the stats aren't, the counting stats aren't there, but for home run power and what I think he'd be able to do in a derby, I went with him. And then you mentioned the home run pick or the homer pick. Could have went with Freddie. Could have went with Bellinger. We've seen them both in it before. Could have went with a guy like Will Smith even, I think. I think LA would really like Will Smith in it as well, but I went with Mookie as well. He's always turned it down in the past. He's been very against it before, saying that he'll never do it. Could you imagine him against a guy like Aaron Judge? But the way Los Angeles has accepted Mookie and how much of a fan favorite he is there, and just being in LA, if there was ever a year he was going to do it, I feel like it would be this year. And then now with the rib injury, it makes stuff a lot more murky. But As far as my field, I would pick Mookie in there as well. You could have gone with Pete Alonso, you could have gone with Schwarber, like you did, but I wanted to have my whole field be all first timers because I think it's really fun watching a guy get in there for the first time and have to learn how to adapt to it all. And I picked guys who I think would be a lot of fun and put on a show.
Yeah, it's you can't go wrong with that. And obviously, I think both of us picked guys that have put on a good show. I mean, it's you could just go down the list of who's hit the most home runs, but I think we kind of both of looking at guys who'd be fun to watch in there. So definitely good stuff. Home Run Derby, probably the most fun event of All Star Week, because the All Star actual game is usually pretty boring. But
Yeah, there
just I
should
don't.
be. We could use this as a little time to go over it before we jump to players of the week. There should be more for the All Star game as far as like a skills competition or other events outside of just the home run derby. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that's definitely a good idea. I don't know what you could do differently. I mean, because
You could
some,
have like bunting stuff. I mean, we've seen like in Japan,
uh,
they have like who could drop down the best bunt that way. Which I mean, sure, but whatever. You could have like outfield throws, like try and give them a target to throw into. You could have infielders have to throw into a target. You can have, contact hitter like set up stuff and have hitters try and like hit the board or
yeah,
whatever. Like, there's a bunch of things I feel like you can do there. I just feel like we're the only sport that really doesn't have much going on outside of you have home run derby and then you have all star game where like NBA you have 3 point, you have skills competition, you have all kinds of other dunk contests, and then in NFL now they've made Pro Bowl week a thing where you have throwing competitions, you have dodgeball, you have all kinds of stuff that I mean, some of it doesn't even have to do with the games, but I feel like there should just be more to the all star festivities. I know you have the futures game and then you have the celebrity softball game, but
you got the
as
draft
far as
now too.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
but I mean, as far as like your actual all star talent, I feel like you should have some other stuff there to help accommodate that as well and make it more fun of a weekend.
yeah. I mean, I get that. And I'm sure there's some stuff you could do, but I mean, I don't know. They might look to that in the future too. But it'll be interesting to see if something comes out of that. That's definitely a good point. I don't know. It's a little bit more difficult to do events like that for. 'Cause, I mean, basketball you got dribbling, and dribbling's a real easy thing to the skills comp you talk about, and then like baseball. I mean, football. I mean, they're not even playing football, and really in football you just have to compensate because the Pro Bowl is the worst All Star game ever. I mean, it's just terrible. And I don't know, but either way, I mean, the actual game's usually not that much fun. I mean, the baseball's got the best of the games of the actual game. It's
Right.
the best one out of them because you can actually try a little bit without thinking you're going to get hurt or something. So, but other I don't know. It's interesting to think about. Maybe in the future that they'll look to something like that. So
Yeah, I just feel like there should be a little something
yeah,
extra. Like, even if you take the dribbling, you have 3 point, you have a dunk contest. I just feel like you should have
yeah.
something else outside of that. Maybe a throwing competition or something as well. But anyways, my little rant on that is over. We'll jump to players of the week to help wrap this show up. So who do you have for your hitter this week?
So my hitter this week, well, this week for me is going to be the guys who signed big extension or big contracts in the offseason week. And the hitter I went with this week is going to be Marcus Simeon. He probably wasn't the best player this week in the in the league, but I went ahead and went with him. He had a 400 average, 407 on base. He didn't walk. I guess he got hit by a pitch or something. But at 840 slugging, he hit 3 home runs. 248 WRC plus in the week. Guy that's really struggled with his start in Texas. He's turned it on a little bit lately. He had a horrible first month. He's gotten better. And part of it's driven by low batting average on balls in play. Part of it's just he hasn't walked as much this year, and it's just been a few things off with him. But he's definitely starting to get it going, and he'll end up with a really good season. And at the end, when you look back at the season, I think he'll end up with 3 or 4 wins above replacement. But definitely a guy that I think he deserved a little bit of a shout because he struggled and he kind of turned it around and had a really good week. So I went ahead and picked Marcus Simeon for my hitter. So who'd you go with?
Yeah, for mine, I want to talk about yours real quick as well. For mine, I went with Rhys Hoskins from the Philadelphia Phillies. He's a guy who usually the stats at the end of the season are pretty consistent with what you get. You can usually know each year you're going to get close to 30 homers with him, close to 100 RBIs with him. You'll get probably a 240, 250-ish average. Not great defense at all, like very bad defense, but offensively, you know what you're going to get. And this week, he had a 421 average, a 318 WRC plus, 4 homers. I just feel like after losing Bryce Harper last week, the Phillies really needed somebody to step up and help carry right now. You've seen Schwarber do that a little bit, but you really haven't got the production out of Castellanos yet. Real Muto struggled, and Rhys really needed to be the guy to step up here, and he had a really good week. So, second in the league in WAR for having, really bad defense. I mean, tied for the lead in WAR, actually, with Nolan Arenado and Justin Turner, and his defense is worse than both of those guys, and was still able to tie for WAR. So just feel like the Phillies needed somebody to step up, and Rhys Hoskins did this week. So I picked him. And you mentioned Simeon, the week he's had. It's really started to be that bounce back for him. Like, if you had went to Baseball Savant's page like a month ago, his entire page was like deep blue, which for the people that don't know, that's really, really bad. And then he had that one day where he hit, I think 3 homers or 4 homers throughout the doubleheader that day. And he's kind of, taken off a little bit since then. And he's had a little cold stretch here and there, but overall he's looked like a much more consistent hitter. And then this past week, saw him get back to a 400 average and a 407 on base, 248 WRC plus. They're going to need him. The Rangers are really going to need him and Seager to step it up more. But the last month Simeon's had has really been, a good. What I'm trying to say? It's been a good step in the right direction for him, I should say.
Oh yeah.
So who do you have for your pitcher this week?
So for my pitcher, like I said, I went with the old who's the guys who signed big contracts week. But I went with Robbie Ray. He had 2 starts this week, 13 innings, only gave up, I believe, 1 run. And had a lot of strikeouts, 13.1 per 9, 3.3 walks per 9. He had a few walks, but he had a great week. He's struggled this year for the most part, compared to last year at least. I mean, his numbers are okay. He has a 3.62 ERA. That's kind of honestly what I expected from him this year. He wasn't gonna put up what he did last year again. That was his best. That's gonna be his best career season, and his peripherals didn't back up the 2.84 ERA he had last year. But he's been solid. He's actually been a bit of a workhorse this year, which he's never been a workhorse before. 104 innings pitched on the season. That's a pretty good number for him. But he's had a really good a really good week. I know one of the starts against Oakland, so it almost doesn't count, but that's good for Robbie Ray. Maybe turning the corner and maybe probably not getting to what he did last year, but getting ending up a little bit closer to that going forward. So than he had been to start the season. So good week for him. He's getting a little bit closer, getting back to the closer to the form he had last year. So good for Robbie Ray.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you look at Robbie Ray's last year, like the 2.84 ERA, yeah, but you look at his expected ERA, it was a 3.60. He's at a 3.62 this year. Like, it is right there. And I honestly think that if you look overall, he might even be having a better season this year. Like, the strikeouts are down a little bit and the walks are up a little bit, but that's all just whatever. He's allowing less homers this year. The batting average from balls in play is slightly down. His ground ball rate's up. Obviously less homers per fly ball rate because the home run rate's down. It is a thing that he could be, having just about as good, if not a little bit better of a season than he had last year. Things just broke his way a little bit more to give him the low ERA. And if you were able to just pick up the strikeout rate a little bit and drop the walk rate just a tiny bit, I mean, we're not even talking major strides there. Just incremental changes in both. I mean, you're looking at almost an identical stat line across the board for him. So, and he's been the workhorse for the Mariners this year. So, Robbie Ray's a really good choice there. I went with Patrick Corbin of the Washington Nationals, a guy who on the season has a 5.68 ERA and a 4.53 FIP. His last couple starts have been really good. Pittsburgh, 8 innings, gave up 5 hits, 1 earned run there, which was a homer, 2 walks, but 12 strikeouts. And then against Miami, he went 7 innings, 8 hits, 1 earned run there as well, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts, giving him a total of a 1.20 ERA this week and a 2.45 FIP. For a guy who has almost a 6 ERA on the season, and a guy who I'd say a month into the season, me and you were both talking privately to each other like, this guy's done. He is cooked. For a guy who had a really good career for a long time, it really looked like he was going downhill, and he's able to pull. He's been a lot better over the last month, and then to have 2 good starts this week. Maybe it's the step in the right direction for Corbin to get back to at least being a solid major league pitcher, because he hasn't been that recently. So Patrick Corbin's my pitcher this week.
Yeah, I get that. Patrick, I do still think he's cooked, but he has had a good few weeks. He's one. We've been talking about him maybe having the worst contract in baseball. Um, but maybe he'll turn it around a little bit. I mean, I don't think he's a 6 ERA bad type pitcher. No. I think he's more of a upper fours type guy for me, but gives up a lot of hard contact, and he's not missing enough bats with the amount of walks he gives out. So, but this week obviously it's a great choice for this week because he has been great this week. So he was on my radar as well. I was thinking about picking him, but good stuff for Patrick Corbin. So it's good to see somebody who's been struggling, have a good week and show a little bit of So.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got anything else you want to wrap up on this show before we end it?
I don't think so. I think it's been a pretty good week of baseball. We typically do our breakdown on the first week, but we figured we'd talk a little bit of All-Star game. We'll probably do the breakdown on All-Star week to kind of break down the first half and go into the second half. So, next week we'll have a little bit more talk about the selections because those are going to take place on Sunday. And then, on Tuesday we'll be able to talk a little bit about the, who might maybe, deserve to get in.
Talk about the full rosters,
yeah. Who got in that shouldn't have got in, and maybe who deserved it and got snubbed a little bit. And then there's that's about it. I mean, it's been a fun season so far, and looking forward to busy. The next few weeks gonna be busy with All-Star festivities, and then that'll lead right into the trading season. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered everything there. It's going to be busy coming forward. Going to have jam-packed episodes for you. I know we went a little long on this one, but I feel like it was a good episode for us. Going up to the All-Star selection this weekend, I feel like we wanted to get there, and we're going to start seeing home run derby names trickle in over the next week or so, because most people usually wait to see if they make the team before announcing that they'll be in it or not. But we'll talk about the actual selections, then we'll talk second half first half, then getting into the second half, then trade deadline, and then the actual trade deadline is less than a month away already. So it's gonna be fun next little month for us. But glad you guys are sticking with us. So thanks guys for listening to this episode of the Batfoot Podcast, and we'll catch you guys next week.